We've got another colleague today, another registered manager, sharing some of her successes. If you can go on mute, that would be much appreciated, and would really love to hear your questions and what you're getting out of the sessions and things that you'd like us to focus on in the future. So do use the chat. We're really keen to hear from you. We will answer some questions at the end. Because we've got just half an hour of your precious time, we're going to start in just a couple of moments. Just wait till we can get as many people in as possible. Okay, I'll kick off now because I know that we've got a session that's very full. So I'd like, first of all, just to introduce myself. I'm Lucy MacDonald. I'm one of the locality managers with Skills for Care. And I'm about to introduce Debbie Stojak, who's a registered manager in Derby with Oaklands Support Limited. For the first half of the session, Debbie's going to tell you about some of the innovation and creative things she's done in terms of recruiting for potential and rethinking recruitment strategies. And then in the second half of the session, I'm going to talk about some of the other things that you might want to think about in terms of rethinking recruitment and how you can open up access and encourage more people to apply to your organisations. So I'll hand over to Debbie now. Please put questions in the chat and let us know what you like most from the sessions and what other questions or other things that you'd like us to focus on to support you with your recruitment. Okay, thank you, Debbie.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Debbie Stojak. I work for Oaklands Support, and I've been a registered manager in the sector now for some 37 years. So I've seen numerous changes throughout the industry. We work specifically with people with mental ill health, learning disabilities, ASD and challenging behaviours. I won't put myself up as any form of expert. I would put myself up as a juggler of services over the years. There have been many changes, and not only to legislation and everything we have to manage within, but I think also huge changes regarding our employees' attitudes to works and careers. In my career, there's no longer the mentality of what people used to like as jobs for life, longevity. There seems to be a feeling of the here and now, and when they have enough funds behind them, they'll go off on their next adventure. Within my sector, sickness that is stress related is high. Probably about 10 years ago, we used to run with a sickness rate of less than 2.5%. I'll be honest, ours is running at over 20%. I've got 5 off on long-term sick due to stress. And with COVID, as we all know, things have not been great. It's been a difficult 18 months. But we need to keep focused, and we need to keep our end goal of a trained and motivated workforce. I think this is where my age comes in, but we needed to look at what appeals to this new workforce. So we looked at rates of pay, salaries, flexible working, early pay scheme, health insurance, private counselling, holidays, and additional training. So I suppose the old chestnut of rates of pay, we always strive to pay the highest salaries we can, because recruitment and training, as we all know, is incredibly costly. So we always look at how we can pay. We look at what no doubt you guys are doing, recommend a friend. We pay the incentive for £50 for the first referral. And if after 6 months they've completed their probation, then the referrer will get a further £150. We look at flexible working, so where reasonably possible, supporting the lifestyles and their choices. We introduced early pay so that if they work any additional shifts, we will guarantee if they wish that, they can have that within 24 hours. We pay for private health insurance so that our staff can be as well as possible and access services probably quicker than going through those traditional routes. And one that we are so glad that we paid for, we have access to counselling services for our staff. And throughout COVID and a lot of the difficulties that we've seen, this really has been something that they've taken up on. Holidays, we give 1 additional day for each year employed. We will get back to after COVID. We sponsor group activities, so team building, paintballing, outward bound, anything like that that puts the fun back into working. We have team days where we run Food Friday, so either boxes of treats are delivered to the teams. We try to use local providers that have been struggling under COVID, local sandwich shops where staff can order, dependent upon what shift they're on, from there, and then we just get invoiced for that later. We link training to their pay, so for each course that they go on and each level they achieve, they have that incentive in their pay packet. It's really for us about changing our way of thinking and their way of thinking. Recruitment, I suppose like all of you, we use Indeed, Facebook, but we also work closely with the Universities of Derby and Nottingham. We have volunteer programmes. We link in with open prison volunteering, and we'll go back to using schools and colleges. So the first one is referral with incentives for staff to recommend colleagues. The second one is simple, which we all do, which would be Indeed and Facebook and those recruitment platforms. The third one, we work with the universities taking nursing students, social work students and health and social care students. They come on placement and we see them grow and develop. In actual fact, it's probably the longest interview they will ever have. If we feel that they would be of benefit to our service, we offer them a small contract, probably a couple of shifts a week, and then they're always positive to have around, because when it's holidays, they need work, so we can increase that, which balances with our staff taking time off. They can also cover for training, and we can look at our training around that. When they come to their third years, if we think that we could fast track them, then we actually offer them a bursary for that third year and a contract, so that when they've finished their studies, I've just now recruited somebody who came to us as a student, and Charlie has done her master's, so she's now just been employed as one of the team managers. So it is a benefit to us, but it's a benefit working with them for many other reasons. It keeps our practice up, it keeps us relevant. It also gives my staff looking at other career opportunities, and that might sound a bit different because we're talking about recruiting and keeping, retaining and retraining people, but it is good to be seen, I believe, as part of that career path. We have also worked with the open prisons at Sudbury and Foston, because links into their rehab teams, because as part of their employees, if not employees, as a part of their prisoners, I suppose, I don't necessarily like the word, they look at when they move back out into community. We haven't done this on this time round because with COVID it's been very difficult, but I can say previously the relationships that we've had with them have been excellent. I can use 2 outcomes where GM came and worked alongside us for some time. He got his health and social care, went on to train to be an RMN, and is now working as a CPN. And SG, he worked with us, worked his way up, did his qualifications, he got his level 5, and he now runs a residential service himself in Derby. We've worked with schools and colleges. where we've gone in and talked in their career sessions so that they can look at what they could be aiming for as they're coming out. We get involved in job fairs with Skills for Care, with industry awards, raising those profiles. I suppose, in conclusion, I've always believed that our staff are our greatest asset. If we invest in them, if we understand them and we support them, then that makes our jobs as RMs so much easier. I've always had the maxim that if you enjoy the job that you do, you will never work a day in your life. So I guess I'm sat here today and you guys are listening to the idlest person that's walking. I'm still as enthusiastic about making a difference as I was years ago. I know it's been difficult. It will always be difficult, but some of this is about changing the way we think and we work. We also work with the Drug and Alcohol Service, and some of their ex-clients that have gone through that process now come to us as part of our volunteering service. So they come when they've had a lengthy period of, and we don't specifically set that, we do that at interview with them, but a lengthy period of abstinence where they are still engaging. They also spread the word in their groups about people working. These are our experts by experience. They will work with us as volunteers. And then at the moment, I have 2 of them. One is on a part-time contract and one is on a full-time contract. And they are excellent members of staff. It's great to send staff on training, but there's nothing like an actual understanding with true experience. I can't pass on any more. That's what we're doing. I'm not saying that it's great, fantastic, mind-blowing, but it works for us. And if there's anything in any of that that has helped you, then I am more than pleased to have shared that experience and our journey. I wish you all the best. If we can ever work together or help each other, or you want, I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm not. I'm just somebody who's been around a long time. Then please either drop me an email or give me a call. It's been great talking to you all. This is the first time, so there's always a first. You can teach old dog new tricks. Thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you for inviting me.
Debbie, thanks so much. That was a really, really inspiring conversation, and we will have a smidgen of time for questions at the end. I know somebody's asked about DBSs, and we'll be covering that in the next half of the session, but we will come back to questions at the end. So thanks so much. It was lovely to hear from you, Debbie. Right. If we go to the next slide now, please, Rennie, and I think there's and the one after that. So again, thank you. Just to sort of like reiterate, what we're looking at today is like how we're broadening out what we're able to do to sort of like reach as many people as possible and broaden the attention. And obviously, as Debbie's talked about, the benefits for that, you get a wider pool, you start to really think about building your supply line, and the session that we've had so far has helped to share some of those potential benefits with us. It's also really important in terms of upskilling your existing staff and improving retention, both for people who might come in with more challenges in their lives, but also for looking at the skills for your existing staff team. Bringing in different people is bringing in fresh solutions. So you're not always getting what you always got. You're getting new people with different ideas and different perspectives. And it's a great way to look at if you're getting people in, if you're taking a chance on someone who's really keen to show their worth, chances are you're going to reduce absences. It's a great way to demonstrate social value, both to your communities, but also to your commissioners and the CQC. And it's really important to think about an inclusive workplace culture. Could we have the next slide, Rennie? Rennie. Hi, Rennie. Are you still there?
It should. you should be seeing the next slide, Lucy. I don't know.
That's with there now. It's fine. Okay, so just this is like a little image to look at, thinking about what you've always done. If you think about that as looking at something that's safe, never looking at people with criminal convictions, always looking at the same kind of people, that's great. It's safe, and it's worked in times when there's been more people available who are looking for jobs. Now we need to start thinking about a wider, looking wider, casting your nets literally wider. So think about it as pulling on your oilskins, going out into the open sea with a big net and looking at what the benefits can be. Next slide, please. Next slide, Rennie.
It
There.
should be, Lucy.
Sorry, it's a bit of a lag. Sorry. So just thinking about some of the people we've talked about so far this week, who you might want to include, and thinking about how you can overcome the barriers. We've looked at single parents, maybe people who need more flexible working times. John Houghton yesterday talked about widows and widowers and people who've got experience of caring, who may have a lot to give. And then there's a whole raft of people with disabilities, mental health or long-term health conditions, and many people with hidden impairments. With the right support, those people will reward you, and if you can give them the support and the environment that they need to work in, they can be great in your organisation. And we've talked just this morning about people recovering from addiction, and we're going to go on to talk more about people with convictions. There was some great work done in Derby a couple of years ago with people who were homeless, and developing staff mentoring skills to enable people who perhaps been a long way away from the world of work to take on roles in the sector. And there are other groups, so it's often about thinking about your communities and thinking about whether your workforce reflects the people that you're serving, your communities. How can you engage with those minority groups? What organisations can you work with and partner up with to think about ways in which you can identify people who probably haven't identified themselves yet as people who might come and work in the sector? And when we're talking about deprivation, we're also talking about exclusion in terms of digital access. So think about how you're making your processes inclusive to everybody, even those people who don't have access to the internet. I just wanted to share this with you. This is about neurodiverse conditions. So thinking about autistic people and people with a range of other conditions like ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, people who can't add up, and other people with mental health conditions, Tourette's and so on. There's a couple of sessions here. There's one tomorrow and one next month, looking at how you can make your workplaces more inclusive for people who are neurodiverse. And have a look at the work that Genius Within have done in terms of supporting people with various different conditions that from neurodiverse minorities, and all the assets that they can bring, things like creativity, real attention to detail, really good concentration, verbal skills. So there's people probably within your workforce already that you can help to support, help to thrive, but also it's a great way of reaching out to people who've got a neurodiverse condition, which makes them in need of different sorts of support. So when we talk about open recruitment, it's about taking a positive decision to broaden out how you draw in people, how you attract people into your application process. So think about whether it's you or whether you've got a recruitment team. Is there anything that you're unintentionally doing that's going to limit people? Are you accessible? Are your processes for getting in touch with organisations accessible? Are you accommodating flexible working patterns for people who perhaps at the moment might only be able to offer a few hours, but as time goes on, may be able to give more to your organisation? When do you ask about convictions? Are you turning people away, or are those people that are looking to recruit for you, are they making those decisions and judgments in a way that actually stops some people who'd be brilliant getting through to your application process? And do you look at work trials as part of your selection process? Next slide. Brilliant. So just to think about it, doing the same for everybody doesn't necessarily mean fair and equitable, because some people may swim through a really, really easy online recruitment process. Other people you may need to get them into your organisation. You may need to actually go through the application process with them and talk to them. But it might be that they're all bringing different things and they're all going to be valuable in your team. Just think, you might need to tweak it to be able to make sure that different people can come in and you're not setting the bar or barriers for people who'll be great in your team. So identify some of those groups in your communities and other organisations that might be able to support you to recruit people with difference. Think about how your organisation reaches out to those target groups, and really importantly, get buy-in within your organisation. Whatever your strategy for open recruitment, don't forget, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So unless you've got the right culture in your organisation of fair, inclusive and transparent, you are really going to struggle to get the right people in. So it's not just about making sure that the people who need care are at the heart of the service. It's also about acting quickly on feedback, about making sure that your managers are open, visible and approachable, and that your person-centred culture of fairness and support and transparency is not just for your customers and your residents, but is also for your staff and everybody who works in association with your organisation. So focus on inclusion, diversity and human rights. Look at resolving problems quickly. If you've got people coming in that have got challenges, you need to make sure that you're addressing some of those equality and diversity issues as a priority. Next slide, please. For example, there are 17% of the working age population with a disability, and only 2% of those people are in the social care workforce have got a disability. So there are 3.8 million people out there who are out of work with a disability who may come and work in your sector. And there's a link here to information about how you can make your application process more accessible to people with a disability. Can people work if they've got a criminal conviction? Well, we know the answer to that is yes, but if we just go on to the next slide, I want you to really think about what your DBS shows you. Now, here's a picture here. If you have a look at some of these people, there's a lot of national treasures there. You've got Princess Anne, you've got Paul McCartney, you've got Hugh Grant, Stephen Fry, all of these people. The only person on this picture here who would come back with a clean DBS is Jimmy Savile. So think about that when you're using DBSs to make your selection process. It's really important that you think about the DBS is not the be all and end all. So first of all, a DBS check does not mean that they're approved or accredited in any way. It's not a reliable way to make a selection process. And similarly, anybody, Princess Anne, Hugh Grant, Stephen Fry, anybody that comes back with information on their DBS, it does not, or it should not automatically disqualify people. DBSs have to be part of a wider risk assessment approach, and that's really, really important to you and to your service. So 11.7 people on the police national computer with a criminal record. So I think that's 1 in 3 of the working population, 1 in 3. That's massive, and we cannot afford not to be taking those people into account. Obviously, we need to do a proper risk assessment process for every single person, but we cannot discount people necessarily on that basis. And so you need, as employers and within your organisation, to think about those roles for which you can take risks or you can manage your risks differently, and think about whatever the role is in your employment setting. Is it possible to think about taking people on with convictions? Obviously, it's up to you, and there'll be times when it's appropriate and times when it won't, but do always look at it and think about what will work. So recruiting fairly, it's about being balanced, rational, taking a common sense approach. It's about looking at real risks with each individual rather than perceived risks. So case by case basis, and consider your experience. Is there something that's gone wrong previously? What can you learn from previous experiences? Talk to other providers, think about what other people are doing, And I'll give you a link to the DBS Code of Practice at the end, which will help you to think out how you might, what your strategy might be in your organisation. So make some changes, set some timescales, evaluate what the changes are doing, think about mentoring and buddying schemes so you're growing and supporting and stimulating your existing staff and helping with their retention, as well as embedding and supporting new staff who might need different sorts of support, might need different kinds of help to access and join your team. Communicate, show off, tell everybody what you're doing. The 3 people that we've spoken to already, the employers that we've seen today and yesterday, Debbie, John and the other lady yesterday, I mean, they're really sharing what they're doing because it's great. It's great for their commissioners. It's great for CQC. It's great for your community and your customers. So you have so much potential here to build in a consistent supply line of people with work experience and internships. Look at filling those entry-level posts with people who just are looking for a chance and demonstrate your social value. But do focus on your organisational culture and think about what you might need to do to embed that fully within your organisation. And here are some resources that hopefully will help you moving ahead. So I've got links here to what Rennie mentioned in the chat around safe and fair recruitment. So helping you to put your DBS checks in the context of a wider risk assessment process so that you're not discriminating against people, but you're making sure that your recruitment process is safe and inclusive. There's also links here to information about risk assessments. There's the DBS Code of Practice as well. So there's a link there so that you can just understand a bit more about that. We've got a couple of links also on the next slide around risk assessment processes. There's some work on our website at Skills for Care, and also QCS have got some opportunities. ACAS too, as well as the 2 links that I've sent you to their forthcoming webinars. They've a lot of information about improving equality, diversity and inclusiveness. So it's really important to think about broadening your net and also making sure that you're not exposing yourself to accusations around discrimination, which is also very important. So we've got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to draw breath now and see if there's any questions for Debbie or for me. Thanks very much for listening.
We had one question for Debbie, which, as you mentioned, Lucy, related to Debbie, working with some of the population that you've worked with. Have you had any particular issues around DBS at all?
We haven't. We followed the guidelines. I will be honest with you and say that local authority at one point had issues around the DBS when it showed that they were still on licence. But as I say, the 2 that I can think of straight away that I used as examples have gone on to have careers within the industry and they are still working. So I think also it's about local authority buying into the same values as what we've been discussing this morning.
Thank you, Debbie. I can't see any other questions. Has anyone got any other questions or comments for Debbie or for Lucy at all?
I cannot.
Yes, please.
Hello,
go
can you hear me?
ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it's Bob Lee here from Theory Trust. Just going on from what Debbie said, I've actually employed people with a mental issue and coming through the NHS site, and what I've actually done to run alongside them is actually run a risk assessment to actually see what they have been in the past. So if it does reoccur, the actual cover for them and the actual guidance and us as a staff team can actually help them through if they are having any relapses or anything. So we do run it alongside with a risk assessment to safeguard everybody as well.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Bob. I know when I was an employer before this job, we also did robust risk assessments for individuals who did have convictions in their past lives. And CQC sometimes would ask to see those on an inspection, and I would update them every year as well, because things moved on over time. So I don't know if that's something you do, Debbie, at all.
Yes, and
risk assessments.
Yeah, we do the risk assessment on the individuals. We also, like, I think you said the guy's name was Bob. And we also have a mentoring scheme for them within the service where they work. So as well as supervision, they have somebody that they can work alongside and buddy with.
We're just sneaking a quick question from Imran Kabir here about the time frame to wait after conviction. Or can they be employed straight after release?
What has happened in the past with Foston and Sudbury is that whilst they are still inside those services, they're actually coming out and doing day release. And so that when they come out, if they're going to stay within the area, it's built up a CV for where they move to their new area. If they're staying and choose to stay within the area, then we go through that process of employing them as full or part-time employees. So it's a bit like a transition plan.
Debbie, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I think we need to draw it to a close now. We're a minute past, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks again to Debbie. We'll be back again tomorrow at 11. So do join us again. We'll make sure that we send out the links to everybody for the slides for today and for the week as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you.